Hi everyone, welcome to the A to Z Movie Show. I'm Charlie Aziza, your average moviegoer.
I'm AJ Beltis, your aspiring movie critic. Thanks for tuning into this episode, guys. We've got our review of Annihilation. And yeah, thanks for giving us an extra hour or half an hour or so of your time this week. We already hit you up with our Oscar special. So thanks again for taking a little extra time for AJ and Charlie in your life.
Absolutely, it's been busy. One thing we want to mention, guys, is that we hit a couple milestones this week, which we're really happy about. We got a little over 500 followers on Twitter this week, and we also hit 100 subscribers on SoundCloud. And we're just starting out on this podcast. We're about, 2 months old at this point?
Not even. So
I think we started at the beginning of December, right?
Yeah. So
2 weeks. Yeah, a little, like 2 months. So we're a pretty new podcast, guys, and those milestones really mean a lot to us, so thank you for tuning in every week. If you want to tell us some more of your thoughts, you can email us at atozmovieshow@gmail.com or tweet at us at atozmovieshow. And we're also on Facebook.
sort of. We don't really use it that much.
Less active on Facebook.
You can email us or tweet us. If you only have a Facebook, which you need an email to get Facebook, so I don't buy that. But if you're only on Facebook, feel free to reach out to us and we'll get back to you. But honestly, guys, any ideas you have for us, any comments you have for us, any ways that you think we can improve this show, we are all ears and we'd really appreciate it. So thank you again for helping us reach those milestones. And we hope that this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. And we're also going to be starting, as we've mentioned a few times now, reviewing some, I don't want to say old movies, but older movies that aren't currently in theaters or aren't very recently in theaters over the next couple months or so, while the new releases are a little bit slower. So if you have anything that you want us to talk about, and your reviews of movies that you haven't seen yet or considering seeing, or movies that you have strong feelings about, let us know. We'll definitely consider reviewing them.
For sure. But for today, we don't have a classic. We got a brand new movie that Charlie and I both summed up in one word, and that word is trippy. That movie is Annihilation, and we'll be getting into what we liked and did not like about this new Alex Garland sci-fi film starring Natalie Portman in just a minute. But first,
what are you drinking tonight, AJ?
Great question, Charlie. So,
in your little wine glass that is disguising itself as a beer glass.
It is a tulip glass. Look it up. It's a thing. And
tulip. Yes. Because beer and tulip totally go together.
You just pissed off a lot of craft beer snobs by that statement. Seriously, look it up. But what I am drinking is actually a nod to what you were drinking the last time we had a conversation about movies and beer, and that is a haze from Treehouse. First time I ever had it, again, didn't like it very much.
That's the first time you've ever had it?
No. The first time I had it was a few months ago. I didn't like it very much, but ever since then, I think my palate has evolved, and I can appreciate and enjoy this. So
it's very hoppy.
Haze all the way.
I know you're not a big hops guy necessarily.
I'm getting there. Like I said, I'm growing to appreciate it, but still can't do wrong with a solid stout. Charlie, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking, let's see here. Oh, this beer is courtesy of one of our other friends from college back in the day, Brad Zaremski, who visited us this weekend, to my surprise. And he, to his credit, brought us some free beer. I am drinking something he left in my fridge, which is, what's it called here? The name? Hobo Life? Yeah, okay. Hobo Life from the brewing company, Lord Hobo Brewing. It's pretty good. It's low alcohol content. Can't complain about it. I like some of the other stuff that they brew.
Mm-hmm. They make some really good stuff.
They do. So why don't we do a quick rundown on Annihilation before we get started?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned earlier, Annihilation is a science fiction film directed and written by Alex Garland of Ex Machina fame, and it stars Natalie Portman as a biologist and former army soldier named Lena, whose husband Kane returns home a year after a mission supposedly left him KIA. Upon discovering more about her husband's disappearance, Lena finds herself on an expedition to the place her husband had been, a mysterious region of land cloaked in a shimmering light called Area X. After exhaustion and paranoia settle into her party's mission, Lena and her team must not only find out the secret of the shimmering land, but also find their way out before it's too late. Annihilation stars Natalie Portman, Oscar Isaac, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Gina Rodriguez, and Tessa Thompson. So, like I said, Charlie, we both kind of came out to the consensus that this movie was trippy. But that's, I think, just on a visual basis. I think looking into what the effects were able to offer in this movie and kind of the themes that it was exploring, it's also more mentally trippy. I like the way that this movie really makes you think. This movie knew what it was, It's not going to appeal to everybody. It's not going to entertain everybody. But for those of you who are willing to give this movie the time and the attention that it deserves, I think you're really going to be blown away.
It definitely was very trippy and very unique. I must say from start to finish that it had its own feel. I can't think of another movie, and I'm sure there are some.
I can't think of another movie that I've seen ever like this.
Yeah, and AJ, you're probably right. Not everybody's going to like it. We saw it with somebody who didn't love it, per se. But if you're into sci-fi and you're into like thought-provoking concepts, new ideas, it's really cool. I mean, and it only gets better as it goes along. The ending, you could argue, is a little bit unsatisfying.
See, we're going to move a little bit later into the episode into spoilers, and you know, if you're someone who has seen Annihilation and want to hear Charlie and I give our take on what the ending is and our interpretation of all that, please stay tuned. But we're going to kind of sum up our spoiler-free aspect of this for the next couple minutes. But definitely, Charlie, I really want to get into why you think or do not think the ending was satisfying.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that later. Mm-hmm. I can't really talk about it
precisely
without spoiling it. It's a really cool movie from start to finish. The visuals are really nice and different. You have a lot of like mind-blowing things going on, and you're always sort of wondering what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. And it's all building up to this climactic scene that you know is coming, and by the time you get to it, you're like, this is it. This is the moment that I've been waiting for. But you never bored waiting for it. But when you get there, you're like, this is it, and it's going to be awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think what this movie is able to offer that so few sci-fi movies are able to pull off so successfully is that this is a very subdued movie. Everything from the approach and the direction to the way that the visuals and production design are employed in this film. So this is a movie that I'm not going to knock for 1 second the quality of visuals and the quality of the production design. Just what you see is they put such great care and attention and detail into making them seem like they're believable and not really in your face about it. But again,
absolutely.
Also there's so much tact used in the way that they're employing these visuals and these effects, and that is something that I'm not saying that Transformers is a good movie, but a movie like Transformers that has the effects that are showy and flashy and in your face. Some people find that entertaining. This movie has better quality effects, but again, they're subdued, they're restrained a bit.
It's a smart use.
Yes, they're
good,
used very intelligently.
Good visuals, and they could have had a similar effect with mediocre visuals too. It's not the actual technical quality of the visuals; it's the way they're used.
I mean, I'd say it's both because it's not bad quality special effects by any means. Right. It's just they're used sparingly, and when they are used, they're just used very well.
I mean, it wouldn't be a spoiler to say that crew of people from all different walks of life go into this shimmer, this isolated world, which is scientifically different. I can't really go into the details.
Well, I mean, they show you at the beginning that it seems like some object from space landed on Earth around the lighthouse, and
that wasn't my interpretation of it.
Well, no, that's what happened in the very opening scene. They show.
Well, that was my interpretation was they were trying to destroy whatever was in it.
No, all I'm saying is that is what that's how the land came to be. Is that it was this lighthouse off the coast of we assume somewhere in probably Maryland, because I think she's a professor at Johns Hopkins.
It's what was the name of the national park or the state park? I don't want to say Blackstone. Anyway, some state park.
So she, so this meteor strikes this area, or something we don't really know strikes this area, and ever since the extraterrestrial object hits this lighthouse area, just kind of the circumference keeps growing.
Right.
And
okay, so my point was that wasn't my interpretation of it, although you may be right. My interpretation of it was the lighthouse was there's something already going on at the lighthouse, and they were shooting a missile at it, because it came at it horizontally. Now, you're probably right.
Yeah, I don't think
probably like a spacecraft or something, but it definitely wasn't a comet, because a comet doesn't fly horizontal to the ground.
Well, it was something that landed there that sort of sparked this. And anyways, what we soon find out throughout the course of the film is that Natalie Portman's character, Lena, her husband, named Kane, played by Oscar Isaac, and again, another very subdued performance. This, one of my qualms with this movie is the acting. I think this was a little too subdued for Oscar Isaac. I prefer my Oscar Isaac like Poe Dameron. I prefer him kind of out there and crazy, or in the way he played Standard in Drive. I don't know if you saw Drive, but he was the dad in Drive.
Was sleeping.
He was kind of like a dick in that movie, but he was like very well acted. Here, I don't really know what character he was going for. The ending sort of justified it, but even so, it was not the Oscar Isaac that I think was the best use of Oscar Isaac.
Yeah, I agree with you. The acting, not that the acting was bad at all. It wasn't. If I had to pick like 5-6 categories to rate a movie, it would probably be the lowest rating of this movie.
Yeah.
I agree. Everything else about it, like the writing, the story, the visuals, just the concept of the movie, they blow everything else out of the water.
Yeah. So we find out again that he went in this place, ended up coming out not really himself, and the more that Natalie Portman digs into it, she finds herself, as I mentioned a bit earlier, sort of part of this crew that's going to go in and see if they can solve, like you said, the mystery behind this shimmering area. And so it's her and a crew of 4 other women who go into this shimmer, and what they start uncovering is every single genetic and biological anomaly that you could ever imagine. You've got different species that should not be able to be combined, showing similar traits. And not even just animal species, but different life forms and forms of nature that are combining that, again, are impossible to combine. And so you start to see the madness come out in this group as they make their way closer to the lighthouse. They start forgetting things. They start losing trust in one another. And this movie plays with paranoia, I think, really well. Again, the whole theme of paranoia, it's there, it's not in your face, it's subdued. But you really see it come out with one character towards one part of the movie.
But you know
it's
what?
Smart. With all of its themes, with all of its ideas, they never really go too overboard at any point at all. Even in that final scene, or that confrontation scene, which we'll be talking about. Nothing in this entire movie is showboaty. Nothing is over the top, and that tells the story and it allows the story to be told very well.
See, I think that one thing that could have been improved, as you were mentioning, the paranoia that was growing throughout the progression of the movie a little bit. I didn't really pick up on it until pretty much that scene. So I think that could have been brought out a little bit more. Yeah, it was there. You had, without going into spoilers, you had a couple secrets amongst certain members of this crew that weren't being shared. So there's a little bit of it, but I think that they could have they could have gradually built up the paranoia a little bit slower. Like all of a sudden, in my view, it was just all of a sudden there.
So let's talk build up for a second, because just in the story as a whole, like I said, I bought it, especially towards the end. I thought it was really selling me every single second. So I don't want to compare this to, say, a Phantom Thread, which I know for you was one way, but for me it was 1 hour of a lot of boredom and 1 hour of paying off that boredom. So I never felt to that extent. It's not like nothing here happens for 1 hour, and then another hour is eventful. The first hour definitely is slower. It has pieces that are being laid for the latter half. It's still great content. That said, it is a tad slow for me to get started. That was one of my qualms with this movie, is that it did take, once they got into the shimmer, I was on board.
Yes,
but
I agree with you.
Yeah, the build up to get into there was
it was slow.
It was slow,
but it was necessary.
Yeah,
I think it was well done.
I think they could have truncated it. I think.
Like, you think they could have shortened it a little bit?
Yeah, and or just use the time a little bit better. So we really didn't get much with the husband, who's the reason that she's going into the shimmer in the first place. Yeah, I think they could have used their time a little bit better in the first half of this film. That said, it's not like you'll be sitting there for an hour waiting for something to happen. It's just the second half is just not as good as the first half is all.
I mean, the other way.
The first half is not as good as the second half.
Yeah, I would agree. And yeah, it could have probably been shortened, condensed a little bit, or maybe used a little bit differently. But it wasn't bad, and it did build to the second half, which is where it got really trippy and really cool.
Yeah.
So it was totally worth it.
Overall, before we move into spoilers, I just want to say that this movie was very solid. It was a really solid callback to classic sci-fi for me. This is a film that offers a lot of open-ended questions. There's a ton of ambiguity, just like classic sci-fi movies sort of give their viewers. But it's not done in a let's piss you off way, or let's kind of raise questions for the sake of questions and never answer them. It's not really done that way. Anything that's left open-ended throughout this film, I firmly believe is intentional to be, again, delivered in a thought-provoking and discussion-provoking way, so that you and I, or anyone who goes see this with a friend or meets up with a coworker and talks about this, you can talk about your interpretation of this. You can discuss the mystery. And it's, again, not in a way of these filmmakers left this intentionally vague to piss us off, and so they were too lazy to come up with an ending. This, to me, was a very well thought out film that used its time, its resources, and its story very well, and I was extremely impressed with it. So, yeah, we can talk spoilers before or after you kind of give your little spiel.
Just to go off what you were saying about it not being ambiguous and it's going somewhere. Not that all the loose ends are tied up, but they're not left completely unsatisfied. This isn't Lost. If you like Black Mirror, I think you'll like it. It has that level of deep sci-fi. So I think if you like Black Mirror, you'll like this movie.
And
just as a point of reference.
And I'll throw it out in a timely way. This is a movie that stars 5 women, and they're all badasses. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's an important movie to watch, too.
Yeah, we can talk about that a little bit as we go on here, but I think that was something that was really interesting. I actually didn't even necessarily notice it until a little bit after they entered the Shimmer. I was kind of like, oh wait, this isn't all female crew going in here, and it definitely creates a different dynamic than you would have if there were one or especially 2 males in that group. I mean, that would be a totally different dynamic, and I liked how they did it.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't in your face at all because I didn't even notice it for the first 10-15 minutes of the Shimmer portion of the movie.
Yeah, I agree. All right, so all that said, Charlie and I really both love this movie. Stay tuned if you're in for spoilers, because at this point we will be discussing spoilers. Worry not, though, if you want to skip to our spoiler-free review and summary and official rating. We will have those in the show notes. So if you're wanting to see what we give this out of 5 stars, again, just take a look at the show notes, and we have that number for you right there. And that's your final warning. We're going to be talking about spoilers. All right?
So one thing that you mentioned, AJ, about the ambiguity, or not something, you mentioned the ambiguity. And one thing that comes to mind for me is the scene where, the scene right after, I don't know her name, but the one who, she ties up the other crew members who are left, and the paranoia is getting to her, and she's confronting them, like, did you do this?
Her name is Anya.
Why are you lying about this? Anya, yeah. And then the one who died, who was attacked by this, is presumed to be a bear.
I believe that
earlier
was Cassidy.
on. Cassidy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Shepard.
Cassidy Shepard?
I think Cass Shepard. Probably Cass is short for Cassidy.
Okay.
So
Cass
Shepard. They called her Shepard. Remember they were always yelling Shepard?
Yeah. So somebody found her body and presumed her to be dead, which she was. And then later on, they're camping out in this house, and they hear what sounds like her scream.
Yeah. As soon as I heard that, sorry to interrupt. As soon as I heard that, I was like, "Oh my god, it's the friggin' bear!" And I mean,
are you serious?
Yeah.
You knew?
Yep.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't even really. To me, it was just a scream. I didn't know that it was literally exactly her scream. I thought it could have been any noise. But when the bear came in, and it's like it's taunting these people. You don't know what's going on for a minute. And it's like obviously a weird bear. Like it's like genetically mutated.
Yeah.
But then it's about to roar, and you hear literally the exact scream that Shepard screams before she dies.
And you're like,
and that's like,
holy crap.
That's cool.
I know.
You can have a debate about like what exactly is going on.
They unofficially, I mean, they theorize what they think it is, and no one really disputes it. But it's the idea that in the Shimmer, when the laws of biology sort of cease to exist, you start to see genes and DNA blend, and that's interesting to hear that the last moment of her living DNA and genetics were sort of passed off to the thing that killed her.
Yeah, very, very cool scene, very intense. I just think bears are cool in general. So,
and one thing I want to say about this movie is that it had the potential to be terrifying in a cheap way. There were so many opportunities for jump scares. And the one moment that I really loved was the first time, I don't know who it was, one of the women was attacked by the half shark, half gator, or half shark, half crocodile. And you just kind of see her standing by the door.
It's mostly just a crocodile.
And I just assumed that the crocodile was going to take her, and it was going to be a big deal out of it, and the crazy music was going to play, and there was going to be that sound, like the boom when jump scares happen, but instead she was just very casually whipped back.
Yeah.
And then even with the bear scene, there were no jump scares. It was a very slow, stalking, intimidating scene.
I mean, it's still scary as hell, though.
Exactly, but
anytime you have a bear like walking in circles around you, that's going to be scary.
But they did it in such a smart way.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably use the word smart in this podcast 30 times.
Well, because
it is. I agree. They take what you would expect from any sort of genre, from an action movie, from a sci-fi movie, from a thriller, which this movie is arguably all three of these. And instead of being a crazy over-the-top action movie, a ludicrous sci-fi film like Transformers, or a horror movie where things are jumping out on screen, it takes all three of those tropes and says, no, we're just going to do it as if it were a normal story. We're not going to throw any of these ideas right down your faces. Instead, we're going to downplay them so that you can think and be entertained for sure, but also have a storyline to go off of and characters to buy into. You're not going to be distracted by crazy action scenes or jump scares. We're going to show you what's happening, and there are some times, like Natalie Portman shooting the crocodiles in slow motion. So this movie uses filmmaking and editing techniques to its advantage for sure, but
the way that they should be used as a supplement, not as the main point of the movie.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. Any other scenes that you want to mention?
Yeah.
We should talk about that final scene, unless
you definitely. Yeah, we'll get to that at the end. We'll get back to that probably next. I just want to mention quickly the general eeriness and the world building that they established in this movie. Mm-hmm. First of all, I mean, before they even go into the Shimmer, they build it up to be this really like mysterious, world-changing thing, which it turns out to be.
The whole idea of time in this world too is that they said they went in for a couple weeks, and when she comes out at the beginning, when they're sort of interrogating her, a little bit of media and res there, and then it says, you were gone for 4 months.
Yeah.
I was gone for a couple days.
And that's ambiguous too. I mean, what's that all about? It's not really explained. I mean, you could say it's just a slowdown in time, but there might be more to it than that.
My guess would be that everything sort of goes faster in the Shimmer because the genetics start mutating, and again, like these biological abnormalities sort of happen fast, and so when you step out, everything sort of slows down. That would be my interpretation. I'm not claiming to be an expert there, but that's my interpretation.
That's true, though. I mean, these mutations occur a lot faster, obviously, than you'd see, in normal, everyday Earth life. Mm-hmm. And then once you get into the Shimmer, it's eeriness and the feel of what's going on inside. They're not. It looks mostly like you're just walking through a state or a national park in the middle of the United States. But you always have that shimmer in the background, this sort of weird effects, and then you have the plants that are just a little bit off, and they discuss it a little bit, and then you'll see animals. Mm-hmm. So you have that, and then you have plot points that add to the mystery. One thing that I think about is the video recordings that they come to at least twice. Twice in the movie while they're in the Shimmer. They have the
one where the guy was getting cut open, and then the one where Kane's doppelganger is revealed.
Very cool, because you're looking at a recording. Who knows when this took place? Mm-hmm. But it's in the exact room right in front of you. This crazy event is unfolding,
and then you see the guy's skeleton,
and then the next scene that was insane. And then one of the characters picks up the knife out of the water, like this is the exact knife that they used to cut this guy open. Mm-hmm. And then when they get to the lighthouse, which we'll talk about a little bit more in a minute,
you see the other skeleton.
You see this recording of this woman's husband dying in the exact spot.
Was he?
Well, he was.
I think he was too, but some people have a different interpretation.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, we can talk about all that, but continue.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. So she thought that her husband was still alive back home, but she's seeing a recording of her husband killing himself right in front, not literally in front of her, but in the same spot right in front of her, and that's the skeleton.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love things like that eeriness.
You use the word cool very loosely there, I would say.
No, it is cool. How is that not cool?
I mean, if your wife killed herself on screen and you were watching, would that be cool?
If it was in a movie and not real life, sure.
Continue.
No, that's it.
Let's talk both the final scene and the scene with Lena's clone. Mm. Chronologically, we'll start with that one first. So that second to last scene, it's probably 10 minutes long, and it's where Lena finds Jennifer Jason Leigh's character.
Well, first of all, she finally makes it to the light. Well, I guess if you're at this point, you've probably seen the movie already. But anyway, she makes it to this lighthouse, which is this big
lighthouse.
Well, it's not that big of a lighthouse, but it's been built up for the audience and for the characters so much by this point. Like, they've been talking about, we gotta get to the lighthouse. Are we gonna make it to the lighthouse? What's in the lighthouse for the past, hour and a half or whatever? And they finally make it, or she finally makes it. Anyway, that's the point. Okay, so they find, she finds this mysterious thing. After witnessing her husband dying on the video recording, she finds this mysterious being or figure that creates a clone of herself.
Well, I mean, it's worth pointing out though that Jennifer Jason Leigh's character, who is named, Ventress, Dr. Ventress, that's something that I don't really know what happened there. But when she walks into that like hole underground, Ventress's face is like, at least from what I saw, it was black and her hair was like red.
Yes.
It seemed like she was like a redhead.
Yep.
And then when Lena came in and addressed her and she turned around, her hair turned blonde and her face turned white again. I don't know if that was a trick of the light. I don't know if that was intentional. I don't really know what was going on there.
Well, of course it was intentional.
Yeah, so that was interesting to see. And then you have her just kind of whispering like she does throughout the entire movie. I like Jennifer Jason Leigh, but this was far and away her worst performance.
She's so annoying.
Worst performance in the movie. But what happened is she just kind of whispers and then says Annihilation.
I'm surprised you like her.
I mean,
she's always that way.
Well, she's not that way in Hateful Eight.
I don't know.
When you go to hell, John, tell him Daisy sent you.
I don't like her.
So what ended up happening there is somehow she turned into this like vortex and sucked blood from Natalie Portman, and Natalie Portman's blood turns into this being, which is sort of mirroring every action of hers. And here's
essentially a clone of her.
Yeah. So here's again where the debate continues. There's a couple ideas here. Number one is, do you think that being intended to harm her?
No, I don't.
See, I do. I don't think that being was going to let Natalie Portman leave, or Lena leave that lighthouse. And I think that's what we saw happen with Oscar Isaac's character.
That doesn't mean that it was trying to hurt her, but Lena's character talks about at the end.
Yeah, she's like, not until I attacked first. I don't buy that,
not
though.
that, not... She says that it's whatever this alien life form was, it wasn't necessarily trying to destroy anything, it was just changing things. And maybe not even intentionally, it just was changing things.
So I think that's a macro level. I think on the micro level, though, she was trying to embody or take over Natalie Portman's existence, or Lena's existence. That's, again, how I interpreted it.
Maybe a little bit, but it's a little bit weird. Does this thing not have any control over its own movement? Because it was mirroring her not perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. Not exactly.
But it was almost as if it was struggling against, like, this, Natalie Portman's movements was a force on this clone, and it was leaning towards mirroring the movements, but it was also fighting against it and trying to do its own thing. So I see what you're
I don't see the whole fighting against thing.
Because it wasn't a perfect mirror. You know, first of all, there was a delay. There was always a delay, and second, it didn't always do the exact same thing.
Yeah. See, my interpretation
otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to kill it.
My interpretation of it was she was almost set to become victim of what her husband was. And Kane sort of was like talking to that being, is like, tell her I love her, and he sort of accepted that he's not leaving that place. I think that's why he killed himself, was because every time he tried to leave, the alien or the being or whatever would pick him up and throw him down, and he sort of realized, he's like, I'm not getting out of here, so I'm just going to end this now, and like tell her I love her, say my goodbyes, kills himself, and the other guy comes in front of the camera. That's sort of how I took it, and I think she got the upper hand. And once she got the upper hand and destroyed him, or destroyed the being, that's when she was free to leave.
Okay, so even if so maybe that's the case. And
that's my interpretation.
Yeah, no, I totally understand that, and you might be right about that. But if that's the case, it's really smart. Again, you know, I mean, to kill this thing, you can't just kill it. You gotta, like, it's like a game of chess. You gotta outthink it.
Exactly,
and you gotta figure out what's going on real quick.
That brings me to what's probably the other, not huge, but another issue or another topic that people are discussing about, or discussing in this final battle, is which Kane died. Which version of Oscar Isaac died? Was it the doppelganger or was it the husband? And my guess is it was the real husband, because the way that he reacted to the phosphorus grenade going off was his skin blew up and just a skeleton was left. When the doppelganger version of Lena blew up, it reverted back to that sort of shimmery alien humanoid form. Yeah. And it still seemed alive, and it was able to crawl back in the bottom. So my interpretation there is the real Lena got out, the real Lena got out, and the fake Kane got out.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it probably was the quote clone that made it back to the real world, or outside the shimmer. But that means this thing must be acting intentionally and intelligently, because it knows to go back to Lena at her house. I mean, that's a long journey. You don't just end up there. And it knows to act a certain way, or try to act a certain way, to make it believable.
And then you have that scene in the end, like this is the very last scene, which again people are talking about, and it's when Lena and quote Kane are talking to each other, and she asks him, "Are you the real Kane?" And he says something like, "I'm not sure, I don't know." But then she is asked the same question. I forget what her response is. I'm actually going to shamelessly look it up here.
Her response? Or?
Yeah, she doesn't respond to the question because he asks her, "Are you the real Lena?"
Yeah,
she doesn't
but
respond.
There's something, I forget what it was, but there was
eyes.
some indication. I think there's even more than that. There was some pretty strong indication that the husband wasn't actually the real husband. I don't remember what it was, but this movie has a lot of rewatchability quality.
Yeah, I go back.
I can watch this movie
again
tomorrow, and I'd be thoroughly entertained, and I'm sure I'd learn a lot from it.
Yeah. But what ended up happening in that very last moment is both of their eyes sort of twitched a bit, sort of showing a bit of genetic abnormality again, and that's the issue of, do we think that neither of them are the same person that entered the ship? I think that's the point.
Okay, yeah, so she's probably not fully herself.
Exactly.
She may be somewhere in the middle, but he's definitely
not
he's
himself.
gone.
But the fact
you
is,
know that come on, from the beginning, I'm with you. From the beginning, when he came back, you'd have a little bit of PTSD coming back from that, but you're not going to act like the way this guy was when you're seeing your wife for the first time in a year.
Interesting stuff here. Really thought-provoking. I know I hope that, if you stayed this long and you really weren't, and you watched this film and you weren't a huge fan of it, I hope that we were able to change your mind and maybe convince you that this wasn't supposed to be a crazy action film. This wasn't supposed to be the most entertaining sci-fi movie of the year. It was supposed to be a drama, a thought piece in a sci-fi setting that is supposed to, again, make you think and make you discuss. And I hope that we were able to highlight that a bit.
Yeah. If you're looking for a straight survival action movie, this probably isn't for you. I mean, you might get something out of it, but you'll be a little bit confused and overwhelmed by it.
But damn, is this movie a good movie?
It really is. Another thing about it is the score in it.
Yeah.
Was...
You made me remember how much I liked this. Because you said, let's listen to it.
Yeah, I don't think it was consistent throughout the whole movie necessarily, but there were certain pieces that were just unworldly, really cool.
Yeah, and out of all the aspects of this film that sort of reminded me and took me back to older sci-fi, I'd say the score was, it almost sounded like it was scrappy and sounded like, I think they used like a theremin or something, which is what they use for the Star Trek theme and things like that. It sounded like it was an older, classic, thought-provoking, extraterrestrial film.
Put it to you this way, I saw this movie on Sunday?
Yeah.
I saw it Sunday. I was listening to this at work today for 2 hours.
And it's Wednesday. TGI Wednesday, am I right?
What does that even mean?
I sent you the video.
I didn't watch the video.
Alright, so pop quiz for everybody listening. If I were to say to you, TGI Wednesday, am I right? Gonna go home, get my beer on, get my Lost on. What are you doing tonight? You wanna hang out?
It's from The Office?
Alright, I was gonna give a 3-second countdown, but yeah, it's from The Office.
I mean, it just sounds like something that would be
Andy
from The Office.
said that to Michael. Alright, so that all said, we're gonna wrap this up. Charlie, on a 5 bottles of beer on the wall scale, how many bottles of beer on the wall do you give Annihilation?
I wrote down 4 out of 5 bottles of beer on the wall. And after this discussion, I want to give it a little bit more, but I'm hesitant to do that. And I think for me to increase my rating of this, I'm going to have to go see it again. So for now, I'm going to leave it at 4 out of 5 bottles of beer on the wall. This movie offered a ton of depth, and it was really thought-provoking for any audience who's willing to listen to what it actually is. It consistently contributed to that goal throughout the movie. The visuals, the sound, the acting was alright. But, I mean, everything about it was just trippy. And if you like that sort of stuff, it did this really, really well. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 for now. I'm going to go watch it again, hopefully in the next couple months. And, maybe I'll update you guys on my rating later on. We'll see.
So, Charlie, I know there's a lot of things you hate. And I know one of the things you hate is when we have the same rating and the same idea behind it. Because I was literally thinking the exact same thing throughout the discussion.
I think you should give it a 4.5 out of 5.
Well, I want to, but my qualms with this film still stand. Minor spoiler, so take a second to mute this if you're here for this. The idea of the affair really ticked me off because that was sort of introduced and then nothing really happened with it, and I was like, well, I didn't need that in this film. It wasn't really intentional or useful or necessary. Yeah. And the thing is, if it happened once or kind of a quick aside, be like, oh, whatever. But they showed it twice.
Yeah, they did,
and it didn't seem necessary. Anyways,
I'm with you on
spoilers unspoiled from this point on.
Shun,
unshun, reshun. The way that they talked, they kind of had her manage the relationship with her husband. I didn't really love that much either. because again, her reason for going into the Shimmer in Area X was because she wanted to figure out what happened to her husband, find a cure, and they didn't really establish their relationship super. They had a couple like flashbacks and ideas, but I wanted to see and kind of understand what they were going through a little bit more, and I thought that was a wasted opportunity. The acting was really atrocious. This was one of Natalie Portman's worst performances.
Atrocious.
Well,
it was good enough.
Oscar Isaac wasn't that great. Jennifer Jason Leigh wasn't that great. Natalie Portman was okay, but still probably, an okay Natalie Portman performance is unacceptable. Natalie Portman's a fantastic actress. She's an Oscar-winning actress.
I think it was fine. That wasn't it didn't need to be phenomenal.
Someone should have told Jennifer Jason Leigh not to whisper anymore, because I wanted to hear what she had to say, and that was really frustrating. And one other issue I had again was I thought the first half of this movie, again, not bad, not terrible. It's not like nothing happened for the first hour and it was all safe for the second hour. I do just think the first hour needed to go a little bit faster. I thought that there was an opportunity to make things more interesting, and they did a good enough job of building on that promise of the second half and keeping it entertaining at the same time, but it could have been done better, in my opinion.
Some people didn't like the fact that it revealed the overarching theme of the movie in the beginning, the whole biological theme.
No, because that didn't bother me at all.
It didn't bother me either. I'm just saying some people didn't like it.
To each their own. Anyways, all those negatives said, this movie is a prime example of how to go about using subtlety and a subdued approach in a movie that you would otherwise expect to be balls to the wall, a barrage of entertainment. And because of that, you have a movie that is entertaining, that does have action, that does have phenomenal effects. Everything is just done so intentionally, so wisely, so well. And aside from those minor errors, it's really hard to pick at this movie, at least in theory, and in many ways, its execution. So I'm going to give this movie, like I said, 4 bottles of beer on the wall out of 5. A lot to love, a lot to appreciate. It's not for everyone, but I think if you have the time, if you have the interest, I think you're going to absolutely love this movie. So check out Annihilation.
Yeah, so that's it for our review on Annihilation. Next week, we're going to be doing probably an older, as in not brand new movie review or discussion. Mm-hmm. If you have any ideas, please let us know. We haven't decided on our final episode for next week or for the week after that. So send us an email at the A to Z Movie Show at gmail.com or tweet at us at A to Z Movie Show, and we'd be happy to consider your suggestions.
For sure. Thanks again, guys, for listening. Make sure you go see Annihilation. Enjoy the Oscars this Sunday, and we will see you for the next episode of the A to Z Movie Show.